But hey, we did it. We can be proud of that. So a warm welcome to each and every one of you. I think everybody else is at the rodeo. The rodeo's done? Or is it only just for the one day? Oh, Friday. Oh, at least they have Friday. Because I felt so sorry for them yesterday. Did anybody go? It would have been a mud fest. Wow. Anyway, and the demolition derby would have been interesting because you wouldn't have had any traffic. Were they canceled? Well, it's probably because it wasn't safe. Oh, gee. Well, that's too bad for the rodeo planners. What do you do? Anyway. So a warm welcome to you. You beautiful people. This is I have 2 more Sundays left after this week. And so announcements, we're just going to jumble all over the place. I would like to host a barbecue after church on the 25th, which is my last service. And it's on me. So we're going to have hot dogs and hamburgers and ice cream and just have an old-fashioned barbecue as long as we can get the grill from the co-op. So we need to do that. And then I'll need some people to help load it and unload it. You know, take it back and stuff. But that'll be easy because it's huge. We used it for the event on Monday night. A special thank you to everyone who helped out with making that event, the John Pentland event. Thank you for helping with the organizing, the food, and then also Presbytery the next day, muffins, and all of that kind of stuff. It was everybody together that made it work. Everybody loved it. They felt looked after, well fed, and the John Pentland event was everything we told those that came. And so we got a ton of feedback, and I also got a really, really nice email from John himself saying how much he appreciated it for himself as he works at developing his next book, and the meeting with us in a rural context to help him develop a process that works, which it did, for the next level. And so we contributed to that process in a really positive and meaningful way. So thank you to everyone who attended, who participated, who supported, who helped, all of that good stuff. Are there any other announcements that we need to make?
Yeah, Brenda, I'd just like to speak a bit about the summer. We know that for the 2 summer months, we're in between ministers. So except for the 2 long weekends, the July long weekend and the August long weekend, except for those 2 Sundays, we will be open here. We're going to have services for the first 3 Sundays, and then after that, we're going to do a Bible study format, where we just sit around the table and talk. And come, even if the words Bible study scare you. Really, just think about me. I love to talk to people. I like it better than making a sermon up. I like getting people's ideas and finding out what you think about different verses. So and I know some people use the summer Sundays to visit other churches, and I really want to go to the Coptic church that's by Balzac. Are any of you, do you know about it at all? Yeah. I'd love to go there and just see what it's all about. So I know other people do that. They go visiting in the summer. But if you're around, come. We'll be here and we'll be doing something.
Yeah, Bible study has kind of a connotation. I remember I was afraid to go to my first Bible study because I didn't know anything about the Bible. And I thought it was going to be you had to memorize it and all that stuff, or there would be tests and stuff, something like that. And the best part is the fellowship that happens during the discussion of building relationships. So, yeah.
The people I know best here, I've been here about, I don't know, 15 years old. The people I know best are the ones that usually Bible study.
Yeah.
We should talk about the word and things.
And you find out a whole range of different opinions, and you evaluate your own sense of what the passage means to you in relation to other people. And you learn stuff from other people too, so it's great. Joys and celebrations. Can you just move? We've got some pictures up here.
What's that?
Can we
Sorry?
move to the next step?
Oh, sorry, my husband was talking to me.
Is he talking to you? I forbid that he should do that.
Jerry.
There we go. There's the laying on of hands of Joe's
Distract your
confirmation
PowerPointing.
service, which was indeed a special day for all of us. And then the next picture, look at that. Isn't that picture an absolute hoot? Love it, love it, love it. Look at the expressions on everybody's faces. It's just, they're just, look at them. They look like they're totally into it, don't they? So I still haven't managed to get the download. Taylor took a video of it, so we'll download and then we'll have it before we go. Maybe that's to summarize. And I've been thinking about revenge for the whole time. So you just wait. But isn't that a hoot? Let's, while we stay seated in our seats, we're celebrating the 92nd anniversary of the United Church of Canada, so let's reflect on church and what it means for us to be church in the United Church of Canada. By my choice to stay, but by my parents' choice, because I was baptized as an infant in the United Church of Canada, and I'm so grateful to my parents. And little did I know that I would get so involved in it as I grew up, especially in my 30s, when I had Taylor and wanted to have him baptized and jumped into what it means to be an active participant in the life and work of a church at a congregational level, and then went on into presbytery, went on into conference work, eventually went into ministry and also some general council work. So I have supported all levels of the church. And while it can drive you nuts, I've loved every minute of it and know without question I would not be the person I am today without that influence in my life. And so let us take a look at what it means to dare to be a denomination like no other in the world, one that came together and did things before other people even considered it. This is who we have been as a united church. And I remember reading somewhere, and I don't remember where, but the United Church of Canada was a response to a new country. How do we develop a new church design for a new country like Canada? And when we understand the motivation there and we hold that, I think that we can really embrace what it is that the United Church has been about in all of its controversy with a sense of gratitude and pride. Let us watch this video, Dare to Be. So,
Sorry, I just want to enlarge it.
yeah, I don't know what happened.
These are the faces of the determined and committed founders of the United Church of Canada. The Methodists, the Congregationalists, the local Union churches of Western Canada, and 2/3 of the Presbyterians came together in 1925 to form a new church, the United Church of Canada. Its first service was held in an arena with 10,000 people, its union sanctioned by an act of Parliament, even though Prime Minister Mackenzie King, a strong Presbyterian, personally opposed the legislation. Created by passion and struggle, the new church was determined to reach out. In 1928, it created the Missionary and Maintenance Fund, now one of the oldest charitable funds in Canada. In 1970, the name was changed to the Mission and Service Fund, and its logo was developed in 1994. In 1929, when the United Church was only 4 years old, Nellie McClung, an activist in church circles, along with 4 other women, won the case that declared women as persons. Then came the crash. The economic fabric of the country collapsed, and the western dust storms blew. The strong fever of prairie socialism spread through the churches as they faced the despair of their members and the inaction of their governments. In 1933, the United Church National Relief Committee sent 9 million pounds of fruits and vegetables to the western farmers. In the East, Toronto Conference called for the regulation of the banking sector in 1933. The banks were not amused. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, Deaconess Stella Burry personally visited over 200 United Church families on welfare and organized 40 volunteers to teach sewing, cooking, and nutrition classes. And in a highly controversial move, the United Church voted to ordain women. Lydia Grucci, who had doggedly served a 6-point charge in Saskatchewan, was ordained in 1936. It would be decades before other denominations followed. World War II pulled Canadians from the jaws of depression into a new crisis. Most of the United Church membership supported the war effort. 323 ministers enlisted, 3 were killed, and 19 were decorated. Women poured into the factories and offices. Churches became the dance halls and canteens for a generation off to fight. In British Columbia, the church faced a painful task, organizing congregations for the hundreds of Japanese Canadians placed in internment camps. The United Church worked with other churches to find jobs for the displaced people, fight for compensation for the lost property, and set up schools for the children in the camps, all the while protesting the violation of human rights. The post-war years for the church run in fast forward. Churches became involved in the reconstruction of Europe and Japan. A delegation of the United Church traveled to Amsterdam for the inauguration of the World Council of Churches in 1948. And they chose to spend their time meeting people from the new uniting churches of China, India, and Japan, forging links that remain today. In Canada, the population boomed. Suburban communities exploded. Churches were being built at an astonishing rate, and they filled up and overflowed quickly. The church launched significant mission work in Canada, a little navy of ships that served people along the BC coast and in Newfoundland and Labrador. Churches in mining towns and inner-city missions dealing with a new generation of homeless men, many of them veterans, whose war now raged inside them. United Church moved into the media. It created its own production facility to make and distribute radio programs and television films to private broadcasters and to the CBC. 30 years later, it underwrote the creation of Vision TV, the world's first multi-faith television network, and the church's magazine, The Observer, is a highly regarded and award-winning publication that offers an affectionate and critical lens on the church's work. But as the 1950s turned into the 1960s, the church was one of the first groups to denounce the buildup of American forces in faraway Vietnam, and eventually gave money to groups assisting draft dodgers and took part in public protests. In Sunday schools, there was a new curriculum that shocked some people with its broad interpretations of the Bible stories. More women came forward for ordination, and married women were finally allowed to be ordained. The church was changing its mission focus. Rather than sending missionaries to countries it thought needed help, the church waited to be asked, a radical departure from the past. And it continued to walk into the halls of power even when it wasn't invited. The church took on corporations, political decisions. It began to make links with other faiths, notably the Jewish community, even as it argued that the solution to the Middle East had to include the Palestinians. The leadership of the United Church in the person of our moderator has reflected the diversity of Canadian society and of the church itself. For example, in 1980, the church elected its first woman moderator, Lois Wilson, who went on to be the first Canadian president of the World Council of Churches. And Stan McKay, elected in 1992 as our first Aboriginal moderator. In the 1980s, the church began to recognize that it needed to mend its relation with Aboriginal people. In 1986, the church apologized to Native people for its bulldozing mission efforts and its role in residential schools. And the church continues to work on reconciliation and healing for both sides. Late in the 1980s, its most divisive issues shook the church. The church voted that sexual orientation was no longer a barrier to becoming a minister. Congregations split. Friendships ended. It plunged the church into an emotional crisis that lasted a decade. But in 2003, when the church voted in favor of same-sex marriage, the vote was overwhelming. The United Church of Canada is proud of its history, its openness, and its commitment to making the world a more just place for everyone. We believe we are called by God to live fully and faithfully in the world. Come and join us, and dare to be part of something great.
I have watched that video a few times now, and I'm always so moved by who we are as a denomination and what we have done. And we are, without a doubt, a risk-taking denomination who dares to stand out against the things in our culture, society, and norms that we think are wrong. And it's not about the popular decision, it's making the right decision. And that, to me, is what makes me so proud to be a member of the United Church of Canada. I hope you felt some of that pride watching that video. And anytime you want to watch it, it is on the United Church of Canada website. It's YouTube. It's easy, dare to be, and there it will be for you. The United Church of Canada takes seriously the social gospel that Jesus proclaimed over 2,000 years ago. A church that is inclusive, that welcomes in the riffraff, the people on the edges of society, and says, when you gather with us, you are welcome here, and we will learn and grow together. We will stand up against the powers and principalities that will tell you that you have no value, that you have nothing to contribute to society. And so when we light our Christ candle, especially as we think about our 92nd anniversary as a denomination, let us remember the person that we follow that set the groundwork for us to be who we are today as a denomination. We light this candle to recognize Jesus' influence in the world, and especially Jesus' influence in our denomination, the United Church of Canada. Let us take a moment for prayer. We gather here in this place, familiar to some of us, new perhaps to others, seeking to find meaning in our lives, looking for the more than that we sense is all around us, in creation and in the mystery of one another. So come, gather in this community, so that we will continue the journey. Come, and let us honor our community, our congregation, and our God, as we live out our faith, grounded in 92 years of leadership, risk-taking, caregiving, and of being a church for Canada and for the world. We are grateful for this heritage. We are grateful for this ministry. Amen. Marion is going to read the scripture passage, which is called the Great Commission, where Jesus implores people to go out and make disciples. Now, a lot of the language, of all people, a lot of the original language is of all men, and you will have noticed in 1925 when the United Church of Canada was formed, I doubt there were any women in that entire arena. It's amazing how things have changed. But what does it mean to be a disciple? Let's sort of think about that for a minute as we listen to this passage. What does it mean to dare to be in whatever form? Let us listen to this passage from
Matthew 28, 16 to 20. The 11 disciples, having spoken to the Marys, headed to Galilee, to the mountain where they met Jesus. When the disciples saw Jesus there, many of them fell down and worshipped as Mary and the other Mary had done. But a few hung back. They were not sure, and who can blame them? Jesus came forward and addressed his beloved disciples. Jesus said, I am here speaking with all the authority of God, who has commanded me to give you this commission. Go out and make disciples in all the nations. Ceremonially wash them through baptism in the name of the triune God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Then disciple them. Form them in the practices and postures that I have taught you, and show them how to follow the commands I have laid down for you. And I will be with you day after day to the end of the age. May each one of us be blessed by a renewed understanding of these portions of our sacred story. Amen.
We've had some interesting times together this last little while. We have celebrated adult baptism with Cindy. We have celebrated confirmation with Joe. We have celebrated 7 years of ministry with reflections and comments and playfulness and all of those wonderful things that go with that June 1st retirement party that was held. And throughout all of it, the question that I sit there and consider, especially as I come towards the end of my formal ministry, is what's it all about anyway? And as we had John Pentland here on Monday night, that's kind of the question that he was asking us to consider. What makes us who we are? Why do we do what we do? And what difference does it make anyway? And he challenged us also. Dare to be. Dare to be who you are. Dare to stand out. Dare to do things that make a difference in the place that you reside. And I know that this congregation has suffered by reputation for lots of different reasons from different people, critiques, and we've been called every name in the book. We've been called evil. We've been called what was the one? I think something like the disreputable in the church. But people, but it's not been an easy journey. It's not been an easy journey, but you know what? We do it anyway. We dare to be anyway. Because it doesn't matter what people call us. It matters what God calls us. And yeah, it hurts when people call us names. That's not the grounding that we stand on. That's not the reason why we do what we do. We do it because we believe it's the right thing to do. We create community. We create support. We create safe places for people to come, which was ultimately what Jesus was about, creating this sense of community where you felt like you belonged, despite the criticism from other people in the culture of the day. And he would challenge all of the assumptions being made by the community and saying, excuse me, but this person isn't blind because of the sins of his parents. Where do you get a crazy idea like that? And when I heal this person, how are you going to accept that person back into the community? Because they're not the same person anymore. You can't ridicule them or taunt them or accuse them or any of the behaviors that you have done in the past because they're no longer the same person. And my favorite line is, your faith has made you whole. Jesus never took credit for any of the healings he did. He said, your faith has made you whole. And we know there's a vested interest in people who don't want other people to be whole, including communities. We have a vested interest sometimes in systemic problems within communities. Because you know what I've learned? I can hide in a systemically unhealthy community and continue to act out as an unhealthy person, and nobody's going to stop me. But the minute we choose to be healthy and whole, as people of faith, as people of community, we make different choices in our lives. We behave differently. We serve differently. And yet people want us to stay the way we were because we threaten the status quo. And so the phrase, dare to be, continues to be the challenge for us today that it always was, including 25 years ago and including 2,000 years ago. Dare to be. Dare to be what God is calling you to be about. Dare to trust your instincts about what it means to be a person of faith. Dare to trust what it means to be a person who ultimately cares about the health and well-being of community. And that's what John was asking us to be about. It doesn't matter what other people think. We do it anyway, because we are called to be those kinds of people. Now, he also challenged, what do other people think? Have you gone and asked them? And I think, oh God, that takes a lot of courage. Can you imagine going into the restaurant and all of the restaurants in Crossfield and say, so what do you think of the United Church? We might be really surprised at the answers we get back, but if we got the courage to ask the question. For me, I feel a little faint-hearted about that. And yet I know I've done everything I can to serve this community. And I've done it to the best of my ability. So why would I be afraid of the answer to that question? I don't know. It's something I've thought a lot about lately. But I will say, I've never been more proud to be able to serve this community because we dare to be. And we're not perfect. But we're authentic. We're loyal. We're faithful. And we're true. We're true to what God is calling us to be about. And I believe that we serve people to the best of our ability where they are and who they are. And that to me is something to be intensely proud of. And something we want to cherish and carry forward into the future. And yes, it involves taking risks. Yes, it means being called names. I've been called every name in the book. My favorite one is you're like cancer that needs to be cut out of the body before you kill the whole body. Can you believe somebody saying that? That was a Baptist minister out of Poland when I was in Balkan. And I remember thinking, being told, don't bother showing up because we're not going to respect your fellowship with you anyway. Boycotting the World Day of Prayer service and these things, and I thought, I can't believe this is happening in my own country, let alone my own province. But I learned from that experience. I remember doing a worship service in Vulcan and said, who do you say that I am? You can call me all the names in the book you want, but what do you say about who I am? How do you experience who we are in community? And I look at your faces. I say you are people of love. You are people of kindness. You are people of compassion and grace. That doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you haven't made mistakes. But what's inside your heart is about fairness, is about justice, is about kindness, is about loving others. And you may not do it perfectly, but at the core of who you are, it would never occur to you to say to someone else, you're like a cancer that needs to be cut out of the body before you destroy the whole body. So we don't care that people say that. Well, bugs us. It may make us mad. We'd like to have a few choice words to say that. But our behavior, our attitudes, continue to be, dare to be who God is calling us to be. And I also know what I love about the United Church of Canada is there is, 1 million denominations now in Canada to choose from? Every kind of religion and attitude and theology ever invented is available in Canada. But there are not many places that will welcome you, whether you're gay, transgendered, will welcome you whether you're divorced or not. And one of the derogatory comments we hear all the time is, oh, the United Church will accept anybody. Right? And my response to that is, you're damn right, and I'm proud of that. Because we offer a safe place for people to come like no other. That is something to be proud of, because isn't that what Jesus was about too? Don't we live out our faith the way Jesus asked us to? So when we celebrate 92 years of being the vine from Desert Arata, despite all the shambrevery and broken dreams, we're still a beautiful denomination. We're still the denomination that dares to be, that holds the vision of 1925. And language may be very different, images will be very different, the relationships will be very different, because we dare also to evolve, we dare also to change, we dare also to make a difference in a new context, in a new world. And it's not easy. It's not easy. It's hard work. It takes courage. It takes tenacity. It takes being grounded in our faith in such a way that even when we feel we're tested beyond our limits, we continue on. Because somewhere deep within us we know God's called us to be this kind of denomination, called us to be these kinds of people. And we do it out of faith and out of tenacity, determination. And is it a dare? Yeah, it is. And yet we feel like we've done something that makes a difference in the world. And the journey is never over. We're going to face a lot of changes as we move into the future, and we have no idea what it's going to be about. But I'm going to continue to be who I am, to serve this denomination that I love deeply. As irritating as it can be, I love deeply. And while I may not be able to serve you any longer, which is going to be hard, I will have never been more grateful in my life to have been able to be with you on this journey of courage and grace and tenacity and spirit and daring to be what God has called us to be. It will be the most fulfilling time of my life, and I will be grateful forever for them. And the United Church of Canada has made me a better person, and I will be grateful to the United Church of Canada for that as well. Because I carry all of the biases and all of the struggles that all of us carry. But I am grateful for the education, for the exposure, for the learning that we are given along the way, so that we can become these people of Jesus. Inclusive, loving, kind, compassionate, playful, joyful, angry, frustrated. All of the things that go along with being people of faith in a contemporary time. But we do it because we know somewhere deep within us that this is God's call for us. And when we live that call together, with openness, with honesty, with conversation, with study, we learn and grow beyond ourselves in ways we never could have imagined. And to be invited into a community that says, guess what? You can ask whatever question you want, and we're not going to give you the answer. We're going to explore it together. And I don't have to agree with you either. Woo-hoo. There isn't a prescription that says, thou shalt believe this. And on our website, we tell people that. And I will never forget Ron Kusmeyer saying to us, every United Church website should say that. Because it says, you are an adult. You are educated. You have experience in the world. It's not up to us to tell you what's right for you. It's up to us to invite you on a journey so that you can explore your faith and cultures and scripture readings and scholarship and archaeology. We have documentaries and all the things that go along with it, and then you will decide what's right for you. It's not up to us to tell you what's right. It's up to us to share together in the journey so that you can make an informed decision. I love that. I have that. And you're the kind of people, if I told you, well, this is the way it is, what would you say back to me? In your dreams, baby. So let's celebrate freedom, choice, risk, opportunity, relationships, community, courage, diversity, risk-taking, caregiving, discipleship, in the most positive sense of the word. When we do all of that, we've lived up this passage from Matthew that invites us into relationships with others. Come, be with us. We have a story to tell. We have a life to live. We have a way of being. And you'll be surprised it's not like everything else. And we may be persecuted for it, but we're going to do it together with God. So come, be a disciple. Let's live out God's call for us together. Let's dare to be. Amen. A picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words. There's a conference in Slave Lake, and sitting in the front row in the blue shirt with her hand up, the second row back actually is Becky. Becky will be here on the 25th of June. She'll be here for my last service. Becky's from Edmonton. Bev and I met her. And we've never been the same since, have we now? Becky's a hoot. She's just an absolutely special lady. But there we all are. Bev and I are in there somewhere. We'll have to get the magnifying glass to find out where we are. But when we talk about the church, we tend to talk about the church in its corporate form as Toronto. Just like we talk about the government as Ottawa. Okay? It's kind of the way we do things. And yet here we are together making decisions. Studying, reflecting, sharing worship together, singing, debating, learning and growing. It takes all of us, and so I'm very grateful. Let's sing this song as a reminder. We are one. One of my favorite songs. Stand and sing this one.
There's a sense that God is here.
Jesus gathered with his disciples around a table with bread, wine, and probably fish, and talked to them and invited them to remember everything about what God was calling them to be about, to go out and to make disciples of all people, to invite them into community. And he took the symbols of that meal, bread we have here today, and he gave thanks to God. He learned about a lot about gratitude from Jesus. And he said, remember me, remember us, remember what we have done together, remember God's call for us now and into the future. And then he took the wine, poured it, gave thanks, and shared it with the people around the table. And there would have been a lot more than just the 12 disciples that are named. There would have been the women as well. His community of support, and said, remember. The most important words for us, remember. Remember the Great Commission. Remember what he stood for. Remember what he was called to be about. And remember that he is the person that we follow. It's his way that we follow. That is about community, about relationship. Remember. And everyone was welcome at his table, like everyone is welcome at ours. There are no restrictions. There's no reason why you can't join in this meal, because it's God's meal, not ours. And Jesus was an inclusive kind of God, and we are an inclusive kind of community, where everyone is welcome. There is nothing that will keep you from the love of God and the opportunity to share what this meal stands for. And so Barb and I are going to share in serving of this meal, honoring our past, our service with the United Church of Canada, and our time together in this congregation. And we were going to do it with the usual plates and all of that kind of stuff, because that's what they did. And I don't know if you know this, but you know the little cups and the little cubes of bread? That was a compromise with the three denominations, the Presbyterians, the Methodists, and the Congregationalists. That's what they came up with as a way of serving communion where everybody would be happy. It's not my favorite way of doing it, but we do it to honor our history. And then we decided, we were going to do communion together because we were going to share in this special meal as our last time to do communion. And Barb has been such a gift of support, a gift of leadership, and a gift of kindness to this congregation, because I know that you are loved when she's here and I'm not. And that means the world to me. And so that's why we're doing this together today. And so we invite you. Would you decide you wanted the bread or the juice? Okay. All right. The bread of our heritage and the wine is the spirit. Get the connection? Although it's not alcoholic. But there's still spirit in it. The spirit of our future. So we invite you to come forward. Let us share together in our community prayer. I haven't got my monitor on so that you can watch that video, so that's why I'm turning my back to the screen. Let us share these words together. We are the Church of Change. We follow where the Spirit leads, daring to be risk takers wherever we go. Denominational united to and congregation for 112 years respectively. You're filled with the breath of the Holy Spirit, blessed God, Creator and Giver of life. May His open universal peace, with the love and love, inspire us to remember how the story of the United Church of Canada and Christ United Church, and the power of united to all people, now and always. Amen. I believe that we are a critical component of this community, and so I invite you to give your gifts, tithes, and offerings in a spirit of absolute commitment that we keep this church a viable presence here so that we can continue to dare to be. Let us stand and sing our offering song, Faithful God, Faithful Steward, Faithful Disciples. Faithful steward, faithful follower of Christ, here's my hand up to my heart, and His heart on my heart. Faithful God, faithful steward, faithful follower of Christ, for the gifts that I receive, I will release on. Let us share in our dedication together. These gifts of God connect us to our denomination and United Ministries of Canada 1925. Empower and engage us to see your church in this world today. Help us to steward our relationship with the Spirit, bringing all together in worship, building this community of faith and community, using technology to build relationships so that we can each other's feelings. Remind us that we give hope to those who live in empty places of life. Bless our greatest givers and influence them in your love. Bless our United Church of Canada as we celebrate 92 years of boldness, courage, inclusiveness, and spirit. Amen. Amen. And now I invite you to come forward and light candles for the community.
The first one is for Colleen. She has been reporting every day on Facebook. I didn't get a report last night because sometimes well for Facebook to get it through, so I'm sure when I get home, I'll know where she is. The first night she was in Indian Head, Saskatchewan, and she was in Kenora, Ontario. And the last I heard, she was in Quebec, and she's also giving the amount of kilometers she's putting on her car. And so anyway, she's having a wonderful time, and I had to correct her on one thing because she showed a picture of a black Mennonite carriage and horses in Ontario, and she called them Duga horses. So I said, "Hi, Colleen. I think maybe they were Mennonites," and then she replied back, "Yes, Bev, I looked it up, and you're right." And that's the reason I know that is because we spent some time in Ontario, and there are different versions of the Mennonite. They start with no electricity, except now they have to have it in their barns. I won't go on. But anyway, I'm keeping track of her, and I'll give you a report next time. And the second candle is for a friend of ours in Saskatoon.
this song together. Thank you for your patience. We have gone longer than was hoped. I hope you will join us for a time of coffee and fellowship. I have about 15 minutes and then I have to race off because I'm going to do a sing-along at St. David's United Church for their volunteer appreciation lunch. Then I head to Christ Anglican Church because my friend Charmaine is being ordained as a deaconess, and that's a huge thing for her in her life journey. And then I head to Boston Pizza with the cast of Cognac.